Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over another schedule preview for this 2020 offseason, and it's going to be over the Missouri Tigers. This is a team that ended up going 6-6 in 2019, and they ended up missing a bowl game just because they had a bowl ban from a penalty from the NCAA. But nonetheless, they had a lot of talent on this team. We're going to be going over a few players this team will be returning, who they're going to be losing, and also we're going to be going over their schedule for the first time this offseason. The games that Missouri has had since November, they lost 3 of them. They lost to Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. They got shut out by Georgia on the road and beat up by Florida. But overall, both those teams are really good. Of course, both of them contended for the SEC East. And also Tennessee, on the other hand, Tennessee was on fire when they played that game against them at home. So nonetheless, it's kind of a bumpy end of the season for Missouri, and of course, motivation I think was a major issue for Missouri this season. Of course, they really didn't have anything to play towards. They weren't able to make it to a bowl game anyway, so it was going to be tough for them to even be able to have motivation to get to any point past 6 wins. But nonetheless, they did beat Arkansas last week of the regular season, 24-14. And as for the trend for this team this season, they started out 5-3, so they overall started out pretty good. But through that November, it's kind of tough. 1-3 was their overall record, so really they were pretty inconsistent over the season. But then again, I feel like this team had a lot more talent, and they did not quite reach their potential that I thought they had this season. And once again, motivation could be a big part of that issue. A few key points for Missouri going into this offseason. They lose their starting quarterback, Kelly Bryant. Of course, he transferred in after the 2018 season from Clemson, and I expected him to have a much better season than he actually did. He only had 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So overall, he didn't play all that great. 2,200 yards is good, but it's nothing like Joe Burrow or Justin Fields, for example. Their second quarterback, Taylor Powell, is likely to take over. Of course, he only had a couple hundred yards this season, but I do expect him to take over, of course, because he was their second string quarterback, and also he has a decent amount of experience. They returned their top running back, Larry Roundtree, which is huge. He had nearly 500 yards, or 900 yards, and 9 touchdowns this season, so that's huge. And they also returned their second running back in Tyler Beatty, which he had over 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, along with 356 reception yards. And let me tell you, he actually was second on the team in both reception yards and rushing yards. So that's something to note there. Tyler Beatty is certainly a big part of this team. Tyler Beatty, once again, he was second in reception yards. They lose their top wide receiver, Jonathan Nance, which could be a bit of a loss, of course. He didn't put up a whole lot of yardage. He had 462 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, it's a loss, but I feel like he's not going to be very hard to replace, as he only put up about 400 yards. Cam Scott is returning, as well as Jalen Knox, their wide receiver 2 and 3s. Both these guys combined for about 600 yards this season and 1 touchdown. So overall, both those wide receivers have a lot of room to improve on, and I think that they will in this upcoming season. They lose 3 on the offensive line as well, so that's going to be a tough loss, or 3 tough losses. And also their top tight end, and Albert, is also going to be gone after this season as well. They only have 1 loss in the defense, though, a defensive tackle. And this defense, I think this could be one of the better defenses in their division. And honestly, when you only lose 1 on the defense, like a defensive tackle, really, this defense has a lot of potential going into next year, no doubt about that. But the offense is going to be the main area where I think if Missouri's offense is good next season, certainly Missouri could get to 6, 7, maybe even 8 wins. Their defense is already going to be very improved. This offense, though, is going to need, they do have a couple of question marks once again with the quarterback position. Of course, if Taylor Powell plays well, no concern at all. They do have a really good running back core, though, once again, and the wide receivers, they weren't really used a whole lot this season, but nonetheless, once again, if this offense plays well, I think that this team plays well in general. Here's their first look at the schedule for this season. You start off the season against Central Arkansas on September 5th. Then it's to Vanderbilt on September 12th, and then South Carolina, Eastern Michigan, and Tennessee to follow. So overall, that first month isn't all that bad. You already have 2 conference games, though, within those first 4 games. So that's kind of unique to most schedules. But nonetheless, you got Tennessee on October 3rd. That's probably going to be your first big test. Of course, I expect Tennessee to be a very improved team this upcoming season. Watch out for them. Then it's to BYU on October 10th. And then you get a little bit of a tough stretch here. Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Louisiana in 4 consecutive games. So that is going to be something to watch out for. If Missouri can win 3 games out of that stretch, I think that they're going to be on their way to a possibly 8 or even 9-win season. Then you get 2 easy games to finish off the season at home against Louisiana and Arkansas. And here's kind of what I'm expecting. I'm actually going to give Missouri 5 5 confirmed wins. I'm going to give them Central Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Eastern Michigan, Louisiana, and Arkansas. So nonetheless, I mean, really Missouri, looking at this schedule, I mean, they've probably got one of the easier schedules in the SEC. I mean, they do play Florida and Georgia, but they don't play LSU. They don't play Alabama or any of those tough teams. So certainly, I think for Missouri, they've got a lot of potential to have a really good season. I think that they easily make it to a bowl game. And your record estimation is going to be 7-5 to 9-3 for Missouri. And it sounds like I'm pushing it kind of far, but I think Missouri's got a ton of potential this season. I mean, if this defense can play well, as I do expect them to improve, if they can play well, I think the sky's the limit for Missouri. I mean, they could be a big dark horse, I think, in the SEC. So yeah, certainly watch out for that. But once again, it is still very early on. We're just at the very last part of January right now. So we'll be going over Missouri once again in the summer, where we will go over every one of these games here on their schedule. And also, I'll give you guys whether I think they'll win or lose every single game here. But nonetheless, until then, thank you guys all for watching. Stay tuned for more for All Sports Central. Once again, let me know your early thoughts on Missouri in the comments below, and I will see you all later.